The warmest of greetings to you, and welcome to Happily Ever Teaching. This is the podcast to help you enthrall your learners in every subject under the sun using the best teaching method known to science, storytelling. To do this, we feature special guest educators who are passionately keen for your children to become amazing and successful human beings. I am storyteller Chip Cahoon, and with me today is...
Hi, my name's Rob. I work in Key Stage 2 in a school in Buckinghamshire, and I've taught all the way from Year 3 up to Year 6.
Hi, I'm Helen. I am also a teacher in Buckinghamshire, and I'm currently teaching mixed reception Year 1.
And today we are exploring learning outcomes in history and geography with a retelling of Hans Christian Andersen's classic, The Little Mermaid. You can listen to the story by downloading our sister podcast, Fables and Fairy Tales, or search our website, epictales.co.uk, for The Dancing Mermaid. There you'll find a video of me telling the story that you can share with your children. And if you sign up as an Epic Educator, you'll also get a copy as an ebook or paperback illustrated by the magnificent Mario Coelho, as well as the full audiobook for you to download at any time. There are even some tips there for telling the story yourself, and a whole heap of resources to go with the lesson ideas we're about to discuss, including any extra lesson ideas that we don't have time to fit into this podcast. Right now, though, let's continue our discussion with Helen, Rob, and the Young Mermaid. And just at the end of last week, Helen, you mentioned geography by name as we were going into looking at the coral reef, was it?
Yes. So
with ages 4 to 7. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit more about what you have to explore there.
And so I've got a couple of related activities for the earlier age range. And I was thinking about that kind of idea of the under the sea story setting and the undersea habitat as well. I thought it would be a really good opportunity to learn about coral reefs in particular, because they're so visually beautiful and a very particular habitat within the ocean. And I thought you could have a lovely time looking at coral reefs generally, so that's a bit of a science link, but then also learn about the Great Barrier Reef. And then you've got loads of learning about where it is, Australia as a place to visit, the tourism around it, the creatures there, but also the threats to the reef. In sort of the modern world, I think we try and educate young children a lot about how to look after the planet and the damage that's happening to our planet. Yeah. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to explore that a bit, about what's happening with the Great Barrier Reef and what's been done about it, what's been put in place, and set the children up almost as a bit of a tourism team or an environmental team to come up with ideas to help tourists to look after the habitat as well and the local people. So that could be idea. It's one of those ideas that could be a lesson, or it could be a week worth of lessons, or it could be a whole project on the Great Barrier Reef. So I think children would just be fascinated by it in terms of just visually. I mean, there's so much out there in terms of YouTube videos and National Geographic videos that the children, I think you'd have a lovely time exposing the children
Finding
to that
Nemo.
world. And Finding Nemo, of course. How could I forget Finding Nemo? So that could become as big a project as you like. You could do all sorts of artwork around it, lots of cross-curricular things, but it's mainly a geography topic if we're going to put it into a subject.
Yeah, but definitely bringing in some literacy and even some of the data collection that you were mentioning for maths last week. There'll be plenty of that involved, wouldn't there?
So you could bring all the subjects into it, and I think the children would have a lovely time with that. As I think I mentioned previously, any sort of sea creature type project, children just love, because it's fascinating. Every child finds a creature to love under the sea. And then this story also lent itself to learning about the names of the 5 oceans.
Okay.
I'm using a map, of course. I thought it would be really good to imagine that the mermaid is just going on a journey around the oceans, and a good opportunity to learn and locate the 5 oceans. And again, you could take that as far as you like. You could just do one lesson, or you could link it to literacy. You could do role work as the mermaid, or you could just simply do a lesson on, here's a map of the world. The mermaid's going for a journey. Where will you take her? And then the children are looking at the names of the oceans and plotting her a route through them. And then maybe if you're going into year 2, they can actually record that journey using the names of the oceans, actually writing down the names of the oceans to embed them a bit more deeply. First, the mermaid travelled to...
Well, this could be her following the prince's boat. I mean, she doesn't know that it's the prince's boat at that point of the story, but she could be just following the boat, couldn't she, as it travels from one part of the world to another?
That is a good idea. I like that. So as she's travelling around, she's having to take note of the ocean she's in.
Yeah.
And which one it ends up in.
Well, you'd hope that it ends up somewhere close to home.
You'd hope so, yeah. You'd hope so.
It's a very long journey.
Those are my two sort of little, well, actually, they could be quite big geography projects.
Yeah.
For 4 to 7.
The first of them. But even just protecting the ocean generally, or protecting the oceans, rather, not just the coral reef, but all of them. Well, there has been quite a moral purpose to Helen's geography, so we're expecting no less as we turn to Rob for the history topic in ages 7 to 11. How are you going to... have everybody saving the world using the power of history, Rob?
I might struggle with that aspect.
No, I believe in you.
I'm sure I can work it in. It wasn't in my initial idea.
I'm sure you can,
yeah. My history idea was to think about mermaids, people. What do we know about them? And then why are they different? Why are representations different? Why are the popular images of mermaids different as well? We mentioned the mermaids in Harry Potter,
yes,
and how they're completely different to the Disney version. And then how do they compare to the Hans Christian Andersen, the actual tale? If we can find pictures from original manuscripts or transcripts of that, where do they come from? Helen, you said last week about I can't even remember where they were from, Assyria or somewhere, was it?
Yes, the legend.
Yeah.
The one idea about the Assyrian goddess.
What was her name again?
Axolotl. No.
The name was, hang on, I've got it here, I can't... Atagatis?
I wonder if her name is Agatis, and that was just her Twitter handle that you found there.
Her flipper handle, maybe.
Very good, Rob.
It is a really interesting topic to explore because one of the interesting things about mermaids is that they are generally one of the villains of folklore. They're usually the bad guys, luring sailors to their doom or dragging people kicking and screaming to be dashed against the rocks or even eaten in some cases. It's only, in the last century really that they've sort of been romanticized into being these objects of affection. I think we can probably credit Hans Christian Andersen with that. Although the myth that you picked out there, Helen, would suggest that even from their ancient Greek origins, there was some kind of recognition of them being beautiful in origin.
In the Odyssey, there were some creatures that lured the sailors onto an island for a year or something.
Sirens.
That's it. Yeah, right, because the French word for a mermaid is sirène. Siren.
Oh, is it?
On the end.
Oh, there you go.
There's also, this is a program for the adults who are listening to watch on Disney Plus, a program called Siren, a series, and it's about mermaids, funnily enough, in North America, and they come on land and they start attracting people, and then they cause all kinds of problems, and they're angry with other people, and I was watching it at home, and we watched like the first bit. I was like, "Oh, it's called Siren. I wonder if it's got any mermaids in it." And it does. It's set near the water. I was like, "This is getting a bit fishy. There might be some mermaids here." But yeah, so just how has their perception changed? How has our perception of mermaids changed? Why has it changed? What has caused that?
So what particular topic of history would this come under?
So it would kind of be, you could, if you're going to link it to the Greeks, ancient Greeks is an area for upper key stage 2. So you could look at the similarities and differences.
Would it be an opportunity to look at almost historical sources? Statements made by sailors witness accounts made by sailors and that have supposedly seen mermaids, and get children to look at them as sources and how reliable they are, and whether there was more than one witness. And would that be an opportunity? Because I know there's part of history is looking at sources of information.
There's definitely a story link there, because it mentions in the story how it's the mermaid's lack of earth element that leaves sailors not quite sure whether they have actually seen something or not. So that could be an opportunity to say, well, let's look at the actual evidence and see whether it is believable when they have spotted or think they've spotted a mermaid.
I did something similar a few years ago with the Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
I gathered witness statements, people that had thought they had seen or had seen, who knows, the Loch Ness Monster. And it was really, the children found it really interesting to read these statements and decide, actually, are they real? Are they reliable?
I think we're waiting for your opinion, Rob. It's your topic.
Yes. Just when Helen said about using sources, that came, yes. Using primary, secondary, all kinds of sources is a key part of the backbones of history, rather than here's all the facts, but how do we know that these things happened? And then also, can we rely on these sources?
Yes. Yeah. Mr. Sailor had been drinking late at night, and then he looked over the side and saw, yes, how reliable is that?
Yeah.
It's going to prompt a few extra discussions in your classroom, I think.
So we didn't manage to save the world. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. Quite a lot of saving the world is, thinking about the lessons we can learn from the past. And, well, what do we learn from the history of mermaids? That you should be more open and accepting, I guess. If, once upon a time, these were a creature that people didn't know much about, and so they were feared and they were reviled almost. And now we have Disney films about them, and we're accepting them more as a culture. So.
Every other day I get handed a picture of a mermaid that one of my children has drawn. So they're very much a part of our culture.
Absolutely. Inclusivity, that's what you've taught us today, Rob.
Yes.
That's sadly all we have time for today, folks. We'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we've discussed in this podcast, so please find us on social media using @TeachHappily, or leave us a review using your favourite podcast app. You can also use social media to let us know if there's a subject you are soon to teach that you'd like us to cover. We would love to help. Please also share this podcast with your colleagues and help us start a story-led revolution in classrooms around the world, so children everywhere can learn in a way that's effective, memorable and enjoyable all at the same time. Tomorrow, the young mermaid will help us explore art. But right now, it only remains for us to say cheerio, and we hope to hear your story soon. So,
cheerio!
And we hope to hear your story soon.